And we are live for today's AMA for the Patreon page. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Right off the bat, we got Jackson and Majestic Demon in here. Very much appreciated. And in general, and as always, thank you so much for your support here on Patreon. In particular, in the year 2020, it's made a significant difference because we haven't had new movies, and therefore it's just tough to do what I do. And so Patreon has become a very nice little safety blanket. And likewise, it's just fun to have some people that I can actually interact with in a group small enough that I can remember who everybody is and interact with everybody. So cool. All right, where is my mouse? What is going on here? There it is. Okay. Jackson first. I was here first, but you commented first. Majestic Demon, hello, Mr. Chandler. How are you? I'm doing pretty good. I actually, in the hour before hitting the stream button, the last hour of my life, I was cleaning up my office, kind of trying to do the best cleanup that I've done in a while. And even, I know, a month, 2 months ago, I did a pretty big little upgrade in my office and moved a couch in here and put a TV in here. And when I did that, there was some stuff that I moved around, but I just like had a pile of junk in the corner behind my door over here. And as you can see now, the pile is gone. And there's that poster still tucked in there that I'll take out. Don't know what to do with all those, the big stack of posters, but because I got a few too many of them, and I don't have enough walls to frame all of them. But my office is almost clean, which is pretty exciting. And I'm doing some music tomorrow at Church World, so excited about that to get to work on my singing voice. Gamerman, hi Sean. I've recently watched Smallville season 8. I have to say this is another mixed bag for me. I like the build-up of Clark becoming Superman, and Lois is once again a great addition. But the Jimmy Claire relationship, the Doomsday plotline, and the Tori Spelling episode, I don't think was very good. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched those specific things you mentioned since they first aired over 10 years ago. I recall that season being a mixed bag for the reasons you mentioned. The Doomsday stuff, I like the actor. It was in that what Earth? He's Darth Maul on all the Clone Wars stuff. Tons of voice work, and so kind of a fan favorite guy. I believe he played Doomsday, so I like him. But actually what they did with Doomsday, I didn't think was very good. And I have very fond memories of seasons 9 and 10 because all the stuff you mentioned about the transition to adulthood and Clark and Lois and kind of moves away from some of the teen angsty stuff. So I remember being very fond of those ones. Jackson, if Pixar did a crossover movie between two of their films, what would be some of the cool ones that they could do, and would you want them to? So what Pixar crossover would I want? I'm trying to think which ones are even possible. Even has like a realm of believability to them I mean, with a crossover, you want something to where the two franchises complement each other. Something's actually added by putting them in the same universe. That's why when you have the MCU, they benefit each other because it makes it feel like a lived-in universe. And the characters were written originally in the comics to exist in a universe that has the same set of rules. To where when people are like, should they do a Star Trek Star Wars crossover? No, because Star Trek and Star Wars are two universes that have totally different rules. So what makes Star Wars great is all the Force. What makes Star Trek great is that it's not the Force, in that it's science fiction, actual science fiction, not fantasy. So you put them together and it doesn't make any sense. So I don't off the top of my head have any that I immediately think that on because I don't. Oh, my mic's way over there. Sorry about that. I don't know of any that immediately come to mind that feel like everything would be better if we just saw all of this come together. Like some of the Pixar theory stuff about how they are already in the same universe. It's kind of interesting. But beyond that, I don't know. Bryce, hey, Sean, how was your week? It was all right. Just, feeling the weight of the universe the last month or so. Like most people, there's just a lot of heavy stuff. You kind of, we're 6 months into this whole deal, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. And there's no new movies or no big movies coming out, and so I'm just feeling a lot of that recently. And then my channel's kind of feeling it too. of 6 months of trying to manufacture energy. My whole content strategy is based jumping on the wave of new big releases that come out, and that we haven't had new big releases. So it's been 6 months of trying to manufacture energy, and then it gets tiring. And then I'll have write a new strategy, try something, and then things change, or I don't know, feeling a lot of that. Rich Reviews, how are you? Kind of just answered that one. Majestic Demon, I recently checked out The Rescuers Down Under for the first time and I had fun with it. Not one of the more memorable Renaissance films, however. Yeah, it's almost kind of a holdover. It's not obviously it's technically a Renaissance film because it came out after The Little Mermaid, but it's kind of like a holdover from that previous era. It's obviously a sequel to The Rescuers. It doesn't follow what made the Renaissance films. It's not a musical. It's not pulling from kind of these classic stories. So it's a different mindset made The Rescuers Down Under from what made Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, but yeah, it's fun. I saw it in the theater. It's one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater because it was, when it came out when I was like 9 or something like that. So I'd seen... I saw Oliver and Twist is, I think, the first movie that I have very vague memories of seeing in the theater. Oliver and Company. So I think that was the last non-Renaissance Disney film, I think. And then, early memory, a little bit of Little Mermaid, I remember kind of from 89. Of course, Batman, I remember from 89. Star Trek 5 from 89. And then I remember seeing The Rescuers Down Under. Jackson, check out the first Reformed yet? It's officially a year since I sent it. I haven't. I'm sorry, man. I need to. The tricky part is that, like, as soon as things slowed down and I would have had more time to kind of pull from the selections that people had sent me, I got the amount of fan mail I've started getting is bananas, and so it's just one of those ones that the backlog keeps falling on me. So I'm sorry about that. I should do a better job of that. Going back to the earliest stuff that people sent me. So I'll see what I could do. Dave Patterson, I watched the Trial of the Chicago 7 and Psycho last night. Both were great. Very cool. Hopefully I can watch Trial of the Chicago 7 this weekend. Bryce Bailey, in your personal opinion, do you think Maguire and Garfield will return in Spider-Man 3 as part of the live-action Spider-Verse? It seems like that's what they're setting up. So do I have a specific... I mean, if I were to bet on it right at the moment, I would slightly put it in favor of yes. There's been enough rumors. Clearly, they're going Spider-Verse. If you're bringing back Electro, why wouldn't you get the big guns? Why wouldn't you do everything in your power to do the big guns if you're going to pull out one of the least popular villains? So I think that there's a good chance something like that will happen, that they'll appear. But at the same time, I don't know that Garfield and Maguire, how much they would want to. There's a side to it that they're talking about, like, they're, Disney and Sony split up a year ago. They only got back, like, they split up, broke up, got back together. So this relationship between them is kind of strained. So there's just a lot of things that make the whole thing kind of interesting of what they're claiming they're trying to do and what is and isn't happening in something. So Rich Reviews, well, they announced the Virginia Film Festival schedule. The drive-in experience should be interesting, but the online streaming material is less compelling. Yeah, that's a lot of these film festivals are trying to do like a streaming version of it, and it's just tough to get. It's tough to get great content for something like that because great content would be content that there is demand for, and if there's demand for content, then there's another way to release it. So it's tricky. Dave Patterson, I just realized this is my 24th month supporting on Patreon. Oh, very cool. That's awesome. That's very much appreciated. And when I say, like, it makes a difference, it really does. I mean, it without new movies, my channel is, not on the hot streak it was on 2 years ago or a year ago even. So, being able to have this community here is incredibly helpful. Dayton, good afternoon, Sean. Have you seen The Last Temptation of Christ, and what did you think of it? I've seen it. It was 15 plus years ago. It's not a movie that would in any way be of great interest to me. It's material that inherently, because I'm a person of Christian faith, would viewed as very strange viewing material. And so, I mean, I don't have particularly strong thoughts on it besides, like, okay, that exists. I have no real interest in it. So, but I mean, it was over 15 years ago and wasn't anything I'd have any inclination to re-explore unless I'm doing a Scorsese ranking. Luke the Film, what are your favorite graphic novels? Batman Year One, Long Halloween, The Ultimates. That's the Avengers in kind of the Ultimates universe. Of course, Watchmen is a classic. Welcome back, Frank. Those are some that come to mind real quick, and then looking at my little stash over there. Majestic Demon, what are your thoughts on Jon Favreau set to direct a Moonlight sequel? Is that a thing? I don't search that up. I'm not. That, I mean, I don't. I mean, I think you might be looking at the story wrong. I don't know what you're referring to. The director of Moonlight is directing a sequel to The Lion King that was directed by Jon Favreau. The idea that Jon Favreau would direct a sequel to Moonlight, I don't even know what that sentence means. It doesn't seem like a thing that would happen. Matthew watched the Disney Plus original Clouds last night. Heartbreaking, very inspirational, true story of Zach, his battle with cancer, and a newfound stardom. I highly recommend it. I don't know, movies about people with cancer aren't ones that I normally gravitate towards, so I don't. Maybe I'll look into it, but like these, inspirational cancer stories are not the inspirational stories I normally drift towards. Bryce Bailey, would you like to see Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher re-team up again for a Social Network sequel following Facebook since the first movie left off, including Zuckerberg's congressional hearings? I just don't know. If there's a story there, sure, but there has to be a story there. That's interesting and compelling. Watching an awkward college student in the span of a few years become a billionaire and create Facebook that had 500 million users at the time the movie came out 10 years ago is probably a lot more compelling than watching a billionaire go from 500 million to 2 billion users on his social media website. Watching a billionaire stand in front of Congress is not very interesting. So I don't like. Aaron Sorkin is very good with words and makes compelling stuff. So in that regard, I would be interested if him and David Fincher thought they had a story. I don't know that they would come. I don't know if there is something there that makes for something as compelling. Dayton, have you seen Dread from 2020? Of course, many times. I love action movies, and so that's one of the most praised action movies of the last decade. And love Carl Urban, and And I even saw the original Dread in the theater back when it came out in the 90s. So, yeah, of course. Gamerman, I know you're a movies guy. Do you think today's music sucks compared to 1970s, 80s, and 2000s? We're all kind of biased towards the era that we came up in. Whatever time period, whatever music we listened to, when we first discovered our love for something, we tend to have a pretty strong bias towards it. And then we write off newer stuff. That tends to be the case. And I have tons of my friends that do that with movies now. Oh, movies just aren't like what they used to be back in the 1980s. And then people from today, if they grew up exclusively on modern stuff, tend to not appreciate as naturally things. Tend to. Obviously, there are exceptions to all of this. Obviously, I'm not in any way saying that total generalizations. But what you are exposed to tends to shape your taste. So, I grew up on really mid-50s because in 60s, because that's what my parents listened to, was oldies from, Elvis through the Beatles, 70s classic rock. And then I was born in the 80s and teenager in the 90s, in early 20s in a bunch of bands in the early zeros. So that's just the stuff that I know well. I don't really know modern music anymore. I'm not really interested in a lot of it. And people will be like, oh, compare Taylor Swift, and then they'll point to something from Brilliant from 1976 or something like that. Like, see, look at how much music has devolved. Well, that's not really a fair comparison, because Taylor Swift would be the comparable to catchy pop from that era, and you just compared it to something besides that. You can always play that game. So I don't have a broad enough knowledge of modern music to be able to make broad statements. I don't tend to be someone that believes that, like, I don't tend to be someone that believes that the music of 30 years ago was so much better. The movies of 30 years ago was so much better. I think that things are constantly changing and adapting. And like right now, one of the big advantages is that it's never been easier to make music on your own. You can make great music on your, like this laptop right here. I've got Logic Pro on it. I could make incredible music, clear music with this mic, this computer, that would have been very expensive to create in 1988. So anyone can do it. It's very difficult for me to think in that scenario where you don't have the restrictions of record labels and the limitation of needing a budget. It's very difficult for me to believe that people aren't creating incredible music right now. And so the question is, even to people that would agree with the premise of the question, is the issue that mainstream music, popular music, is getting watered down and we're not getting enough high art and pop music. Maybe that's true, but people would have made that argument back in 1988 too. They would have made that argument in 1977 too. So anyway, there's a bunch of random thoughts. Richie Hughes, I remember Michael C. Hall giving an interview a year or two ago after a Dexter ending. He was candid about the writer turnover, and he thought the ending wasn't up to audience expectations. Yeah, it's always good when a star can acknowledge something didn't work. Not honesty is always appreciated. Gamerman, which do you think is better, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, or Jaws 2? The Lost World. The Lost World. I mean, I'll probably rewatch Jaws 2 this week for the 31 on 31 I'm working on for the 31st of this month. And so, but like, Jaws 2 isn't a movie I go back and rewatch. Unless when I watch through all the movies, I'll watch it, but that's once every 4 years or 3 years or something like that. And I guess that's true similarly of The Lost World, but I think Lost World benefits greatly from Steven Spielberg being able to elevate material, make it more exciting. He's a far better director than the director of Jaws 2. It's elevated by, Jeff Goldblum being the star of it. He's inherently a more fun character than Roy Schneider. I'm getting my names mixed up. Star of Jaws 1 and 2. His name's something like that. I just think it's a better film for that reason. I'm not a big Jaws 2 person. I like Jaws 3 more than Jaws 2. Schlock value, certainly. It's a schlocky better movie, but the goofiness of it just works better. Bryce, with all the Batman set photos leaking, potentially spoiling key information, do you try and keep away from looking at set photos, or do you look? I don't pursue that stuff. I don't worry too much about set photos, because like I saw those early photos from Endgame where they were in the Battle of New York 2012, and it didn't affect my enjoyment of the movie, so I don't worry about it too much. Anytime that, if they're not like, we gotta get rid of these cameras, if they're not trying to keep it super secretive, I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to spoil the movie. So I don't pursue it. I don't try and know too much about it, but I don't avoid it either. Luke the Film Fan, have you ever played D&D? I played D&D 2 days ago for the first time. Follow me on Instagram. I posted about it just yesterday. But yeah, my kids got interested in it, so my sister plays, so then we went over to her house and played like a game with my kids. But that was literally Thursday, 2 days ago that happened. Jackson, this could be a good time for you to work on a screenplay if you aren't already. I don't know. No, it wouldn't. It might seem that way from your perspective. From my perspective, I'm swamped, backlogged, and way far behind on a ton of different things. My time, I sponge it up. I've always got 1,000 things that I want to do. So I'm working on one thing that'll probably even help me financially over the next 6 months until the movies start coming out again. Is I've developed a whole course on YouTube over the last few months, and now I'm homeschooling my kids, and so I've always got a million projects that I don't to develop a story, and I don't have the one story I'd be willing to risk that much time on. David Patterson, I am 3 movies away from having seen all the Martin Scorsese films. I have left are The Age of Innocence, Kundun, and New York, New York. I do plan on rewatching some as well. Very cool. Bryce Bailey, who is your favorite slasher final girl? Mine would be Sidney Prescott from Scream. I'd probably go Sidney Prescott as well, just because I love the Scream movies. Just a Demon, have you watched any of the other DreamWorks films from your DreamWorks ranking? For your DreamWorks? Yeah. I mean, we're making way through the list. A couple movies per week, so watched 1 or 2 this week. So, yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of questions in here. Thomas Jones, hey Sean, hope you're doing well. Do you have a favorite food? Not really. I don't actually like to pick favorites. I don't like to pick favorites. I like different things at different times. Even though I'm like a list guy and famous for making lists, that is not something I enjoy doing. Picking favorites. Luke, the film fan, have you seen Schitt's Creek? Nope. Not 1 episode. Matthew, Sean 3 is becoming way too overstuffed. It's possible. I mean, we don't know how much of it's true, and if they're doing multiverse stuff, that changes the dynamic of what overstuffed means. Because if you're trying to like actually develop out a bunch of different villains, that's very different from a multiverse thing where you're hopping through universes, and so cameos make sense to have someone just show up briefly. She's like, hey Sean, I just joined in. Hey man. Dayton, hey Sean, when do you think the Martin Scorsese video is coming up, or is the schedule too crowded? It's not coming anytime soon. Like I have not said it. I'm not saying I'm doing a Scorsese ranking. I did not, because that is not what I said. Yeah, stop and think about this. He's been working for 50 years. So it's about 25 movies. All of them are heavy. Virtually none of them are appropriate for kids. So that's 75 hours, 50 plus hours of movies I have to watch after my kids go to bed. So at best, I can only watch like one of them per day, maybe. But I don't want to commit 30 days straight to just watching Martin Scorsese after my wife goes to bed to do one video. That's a very difficult thing for me to commit to do. It's very difficult for me to rationalize doing, because that's all the other things I could be watching, to do all the other type of videos I could be doing. That's if I just hardcore just press to do it a full month straight of only watching Scorsese after my kids go to bed to do one video. That's a very big commitment to my time. That's a very big commitment for my nights. And yet you just have to think through it from that perspective of, to do that video is a lot of movie watching to make it happen. So it's not on my radar to have that happen anytime soon. People ask about it all the time. It's absolutely something I think about. It's just not an easy video to do. Rich Reviews always thought The Great Mouse Detective was an underrated film, although I never thought much of Oliver and Company. Yeah, Great Mouse, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. That's kind of been my perspective. Oliver and Company is one of those ones that it's like, oh yeah, that's a thing that exists. Whereas The Great Mouse Detective is like, yeah, that's a pretty cool little film that unfortunately doesn't get talked about enough. And kind of overshadowed by the Renaissance and Disney and Pixar and all the animation stuff that came right after that era of animated films. It just seems to have overshadowed so much of what came out in the 80s. Shake, am I prepping for a college exam tomorrow? So we'll see you next week. Hope you had a great day and wish you the best. Thank you, man. Greatly appreciated. Game Man, do you think Evan Peters will be playing Quicksilver in WandaVision since he was cast in the series? I don't really have a guess on that. It's entirely possible because of the multiverse, because going into the mind stuff, the acquisitions, they could be doing something like that. I don't have a particular opinion, speculation, or anything like that. Bryce Bailey, are you excited for a Cassian Andor Disney Plus series? I personally don't really like Rogue One, and he didn't strike me as a character that would warrant an entire spin-off show. I mean, I'm interested in it because it's Star Wars. Their TV shows, I think, are doing better than their movies these days, or in regards to quality. So all of those are positives that I'd be interested in it. But of all the TV shows that they could greenlight, of all the time periods to go to, Cassian Andor? Another movie, TV series set between the end of Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, or I could phrase it differently, another movie, TV series set between Attack of the Clones and A New Hope. They just keep going to that time period, and I keep saying, I don't want them to do that. The only kind of exception that I have is the Obi-Wan one, and Obi-Wan being the exception because he is one of the best characters. He's one of the most interesting characters. They cast Ewan McGregor 20 years ago, therefore now he's getting old enough that you can start having that transitional story in there, and we have a great character that there's a gap for 20 years. What was he up to? There's a lot of interesting things you can do with that. But like Cassian Andor, it's like a random character in a movie that was one of the big criticisms of Rogue One is the characters weren't very memorable. And I think it's a fair criticism. I would tend to agree with it. They're not the most memorable, and now they're making a show out of the guy. That's weird. David Patterson, do you have a copy of The King of Comedy? No, I do not. I'm considering sending you one since seems like everyone else is sending you the Scorsese films. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't own a copy of it. And so for this Scorsese ranking that I am not announcing, I'm not saying it's coming anytime soon, but it's absolutely on my mind that I absolutely am. I'm hearing people. I know you want it, and I want it to happen. It's a matter of, it's just not easy to do. So, the more movies people send me, the easy. I mean, the other thing you have to think about, like a list of 75 movies, or not 75, 25 movies. Some of those will be on streaming. Some of them won't be on streaming services. And so then for me to watch them, I either have to buy them or I have to rent them. And so even if they're $2 to rent them, it's $50. But it's not $2 to rent, it's like $3-4. So it turns into, even if I own, some are on streaming and I own some, so having to pay $50 to create the video that might not have a lot of demand for it. That's all the stuff that goes into it. That's all the stuff I think about. Sorry, going back to the previous question. But I absolutely don't have it. I am interested in watching it, especially because of Joker and all the comparisons and everything. And I do want to make this Scorsese video. It's just difficult. I would guess it'll happen in 2021. I would guess that's likely to happen. I'm currently working on David Fincher movies, as I've mentioned on Patreon. And I can only have one of these like heavy projects that I'm working on at a time. So Scorsese is the one that I get the most requests for. So that might be the next one that I work towards. But that is not an announcement. That is not an official thing that I'm saying. That is definitely happening. Jackson, are you okay? Do you feel like you'll be able to pull through still doing this full time? Yeah. I'm not in danger. Or anything like that. It's the good thing about doing YouTube is that it's entirely based around my work, my effort, my wits. So there's always more things I can do to try and generate more income, and there's different strategies that I could do that if I was in danger. You'd probably start seeing a lot more weekly AMA and stuff like that to get super chats and things like that. But, it's not... It's the best way to describe it is that the channel basically kind of plateaued about a year ago. About September of last year, kind of hit a plateau. A little bit of a spike went back up when Star Wars came out in December. And fall's always at kind of a flat plateau season. It's because it's a slow season for movies. And then bump up when Star Wars came out. And then you had January, February, slow months for movies. And then 2020, beer bug hit. So no new movies coming out. And so you kind of have a scenario where it just, there's a sense of it's like, it feels like my channel's kind of been on a lull for over a year now in a lot of ways. And there's a couple of months during all of this, I've been able to kind of spark some energy and get some stuff happening. But there's only so many of those ideas that I have. And so then it's kind of like, how much does it take to generate momentum and try and get people excited out of nothing? Because fandom, DC fandom, 6 weeks ago or whatever, 2 months ago, we get the Batman trailer. That generates excitement itself. And so then I ride the wave of that excitement. With all the top 10s, I'm trying to discover what would be exciting to talk about, because there's not a lot of these big shared things that we're all excited about. And so it's, you just go through so much of it, and it's tiring. But it's not like there's nothing that's like suggesting that, like, man, I better start applying for a job or anything. It's not that. It's just a lot trickier. And once again, that's where, Patreon is a lot of these months. It's filling in the gap, the difference of where I was thinking this year would be. And it's just not there because the views and excitement are much less than they were last year because we don't have Endgame, we don't have Lion King, we don't have all these other things that just generated excitement. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's I am okay, and there's no reason to think I won't be doing this full time. But I'm always working to diversify and think of it as a business, not just as like having fun. It's a hobby. Wow, I'm lucky. No, it's a business, and so I'm trying to think through clever things. And so one of the things that, and what are other things that I can do that are exciting. So I'm already like trying to rush through some of these, and I'm still 20 minutes behind on your questions. Michigan, I know that score on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't determine how good or bad a film is. After seeing Soul as 100% from only 21 ratings, that has me excited to watch it when it starts streaming. Yeah, I mean, it's a Pixar movie. They're pretty much always extremely high on Rotten Tomatoes. 21 reviews from a film festival. It's pretty biased. And biased. People like it's very exciting to see something at a film festival 3 months before anyone else. It's a room full of people that are in love with cinema. It's a cool place to see a movie, so it's a lot easier to kind of have generated excitement for it in that context. So I wouldn't overinflate what 100% means at this moment. It's only 21 reviews, and they're from a film festival. But it's Pixar, so the movie's almost certainly, it'll probably stay over 90%. I'd be surprised if it dipped lower than 85% after it's released. I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised. Bryce Bailey, have you seen The Outsiders on HBO? It just got renewed for season 2. It's one of my favorite TV shows of the last few years. No, I actually don't know anything about it. Thomas Jones, even though originally the other videos didn't do as well as you'd like, are you still considering a Parks and Rec character ranking? I don't think I've said that I've been considering that one. People ask me a lot of things, like I get a lot of questions, and so I sometimes answer them differently based off my mood. But I've pretty well said since that video came out and didn't do very well that I don't think I would do that. And then I did another experiment with Community, same exact Parks and Rec experiment. Watched the whole show, put it out, and it just tanked. It just bombed. And I hardcore went into the Community one, like knowing it would probably underwhelm me with how well it was going to do, but I was going to push through and try and crank out these other additional rankings with it, and there's just not the demand, and it's tough to rationalize in a time period where it's tough. Like it's more difficult to get views right now, and views are a big part of how I make my money. Doing content that I know there's not interest in for a broad number of people. There's a minority that get very excited about Community and Parks and Rec videos, and then there's the majority that just ignore them. And I spent 4 months doing the Community video, posted it over a month ago. It hasn't hit 10,000 views yet, which, like, if you're a hobby creator, that sounds like a great number, but for me, under 10,000 on something I spent 4 months on, it means I spent 4 months on something that made under $30. And I lost subscribers on it. Based off my analytics, I have fewer subscribers because I did that video than I did before. In a year where I'm already feeling down because subscriber growth is so kind of flatlined. And I lost subscribers because of a video I spent 4 months on. And so that's the same concept with Parks and Rec. It's tough to justify it. Nicholas, between 12 Angry Men, Misery, and Shawshank Redemption, which one should I watch later? They're three very different movies, so I wouldn't even make a guess as to which one you should watch later, because it's like asking. It's just asking me three random things that I don't see the through line of what the similarity is. So you can watch whatever one is most interesting to you first, and which one is least interesting to you last. But there's no commonality that I could give you a logic as to why I would say you should watch one or the other above the other ones. Jackson, what are your thoughts on people who are proud to say they've never seen certain films like Star Wars, etc.? I don't know. I mean, it's, different people. It's, people want to be like that. Cool, whatever. I just don't really care. This is not really of great interest to me if someone's. It seems like everyone in their own way wants to be unique, different, and stand out.
Not everyone wants to be the center of attention. Not everyone wants people staring at them. But we all want to feel like we have something important about us, something that matters, something that's different, something that's unique. And so that's where you have people that are like, I've never seen Star Wars. Okay, it's a little something that makes them unique, different, stand out. Some people have more of that contrarian streak than others, and so then they really like to emphasize things like that. And I don't think anything about it beyond that much. Matthew, Real still had a cool, intense robot fighting action than either Transformers movies combined. I actually haven't seen it. Luke, the film fan, would you want another Predator movie? I'm entirely open to another Predator movie. I think it's one of these franchises that has been underutilized, even though they've appeared in a new movie every, on average every 6 years or something like that for the last 30 years. We've seen a bunch of them, but it doesn't seem like it should be difficult to make a good Predator movie. But for whatever reason, they just keep overthinking it and keep missing the mark with the Predators. And it feels like we could sit down, we could do a little brainstorming session right now, and we could just start writing things that would be kind of interesting to do with them, that would be a little bit like right off the bat, what's their planet? What if they went to a different planet with different aliens? What were they like 200 years ago before they started traveling? Like, what were they Predators doing on their... you could just kind of sit there and there's these kind of questions that are just kind of interesting of like, if you have this you have a highly aggressive hunter class of people that also have a certain ethic to it of they are hunting hunters, and they're highly advanced in their technology. There's just a lot of opportunities to do something with that. And for whatever reason, they just haven't cracked the code, and that's confusing to me. Gamer Man, what are your thoughts on Tess Mercer, Lex Luthor's replacement as Smallville Season 8 and the other 2 seasons? She's a mixed bag for me right now. I don't have really any memories of her. I mean, like, I remember her face. I could point around at a lineup. I remember certain emotions, but I don't have any distinct thoughts on her. Same thing I keep mentioning. Like, I watched the seasons 1 through 4, the high school era of Smallville. I probably watched all of those seasons multiple times because they were the earliest ones. And I tend to rewatch shows more while they're running than I do after I've fully watched them. And then I watched some of my favorite episodes, like season 6, like the Arrow stuff. I really liked that. So I rewatched those specific episodes a good bit. Injustice, I think it's episode 12 from season 6. And then I really liked seasons 9 and 8. So I've rewatched a good bit of those. But like season 5, 7, 8, I only watched them when they first ran. I haven't rewatched those ones. So those are the ones I remember the least. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Jason Blum saying Halloween Kills will premiere on the 2021, virus or no virus. Good. I think that's what the studios need to do. Just decide, make a decision. It's done. It's happening. We are releasing it, or we're not, or we're pulling it until we can commit to something. And then if you approach and they need to change it, like, okay, it's going to streaming because we can't put it out in the theater. Whatever it is, they need to stick to something, make a decision on it. So I think it's good. And it's a year away. It's literally a year away. So, cool. Matthew, New York finally reopening theaters. Better 49th state than never. It's true. And it's interesting timing now that there's like specifically right now things are like sparking back up. And now he's like, let's reopen a little bit. Okay. Whatever. Okay. Bryce, what do you think about HBO Max Green Lantern series not including Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart? Do you think Warner Brothers is reserving them for a live-action Green Lantern movie? It seems weird to do Green Lantern without one of the most iconic versions of the character. But that's kind of what some of these shows are. Like, let's do a Bat show, but it's Batwoman. It's not Batman. It's not Batgirl. It's not about Robin. It's about Batwoman. And she's like replacing a Batman that's disappeared. Like they just do a lot of that stuff because it's like the person that they can get. Because I think there is a little bit of the Warner Brothers wanting to hold on some of these characters for the big screen, and so you get the C team for some of these characters, and I don't think it's to anyone's advantage. Luke the film fan, have you seen Lost Boys? Actually, I haven't, unfortunately. Majestic Demon, apparently Spider-Man 3 has begun filming it, and we'll get our first look in December. It's pretty cool. Pretty exciting. Yeah, that's what makes all these announcements weird about some of this. Like, they just sealed the deal to get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. They're filming. What are you talking about? They just signed the papers. How does that even make any sense? David Patterson, I finished reading Dune a few days ago. Definitely a great book. And Denis Villeneuve is perfect director for the movie. My wife is reading it right now. She is not as big of a fan. Bryce Bailey, which of your Funkos would you most like to get signed and by whom? I don't think that's something I'm interested in. I don't think that's... I especially the way I use my Funkos, where I grab them, I carry them around, and I put them behind me. They're not something I would want to get signed. If I was going to get something signed, it would be like, let me get a picture with this person and get signed. But I'm not as interested in autographs. Pictures with someone is something that's cool. It's because their signatures for a number of reasons. It's isn't as interesting to me as like, I was there with this person. Like, this is me with John Wesley Shipp, the guy from The Flash that I grew up with. Now he's right next to me. That's more interesting to me by a lot. Matthew McCarthy, you should do a video on top 10 favorite movie trailers. One of mine is Civil War. I remember seeing before Batman v Superman, everyone, including myself, clapped loudly when Spider-Man stole Cap's shield. Yeah, I've thought about it. It's on my radar. It's tough, though, to do a ranking like that because you perceive of trailers very differently after you've seen the movie. And so you're trying to remember, like, what was a trailer that, like, really stirred my emotions, but you can't do research to capture what that is. Like, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about these, researching things, but, like, top 10 best trailers, you know, some of them are going to be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, so I'm trying to remember what was my experience watching it 21 years ago. It's tough to do. Rich Reviews, have you seen the TikTok video of the guy skateboarding to Fleetwood Mac? I've seen... Yes, essentially I have. I don't really use TikTok, but I've seen it just because I'm aware of it. David Patterson, we're watching Shrek 2 for school, but I haven't seen Shrek 1. Spoilers! Gamerman, do you think setting up that Justice League at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths was a bad idea because that's about how many of them will be there by the time the next crossover comes around? I don't know, it's a nice touch. They're always trying to do little things like that to tease what's coming in the future. Of my many criticisms of Crisis on Infinite Earths, that wouldn't be the one that would stick out to me. You know, you have to do things like that. And there's always a risk something won't pan out or you'll change your direction. But you want to do some nice little touches. Majestic Demon, have you heard that Michael B. Jordan will be producing a DC Static Shock film? Yes, I have heard that. I shared it on my Instagram stories yesterday. Luke the Film Fam, do you think Ripley in Alien Resurrection as still the same character as Ripley from Aliens, or do you think she's a completely different character? I think she's a completely different character. I watched the movie 2 weeks ago. And by just watching her, she's clearly a different character. She does not behave like Ripley, and that is built into the plot line of the cloning process and everything. They make it very, very clear that that there's a crossing of the DNA. So that is not the same Ripley. It's a different hybrid Ripley. David Patterson, have you played Among Us? No, I'm not entirely sure what that is. Gamerman, have you seen the Reb Brown Captain America movies from 1979? I have not. I've seen all kinds of clips from them, but I have not actually watched the movies beginning to end or anything like that. David Patterson, I haven't seen the Clone Wars, so this may not be completely true, but The Mandalorian is the best thing to happen to Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back. I probably wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't agree with that, but I'm not terribly far off. I'm very fond of The Mandalorian. I think we'll see what season 2 does. It could heavily elevate it. The episodic nature of season 1 and some of the specific episodes in there were just a little bit too fillery, and I think that hurt it a good bit for me in regards to it's the best thing in 40 years in the realm of Star Wars, but I'm very fond of it. So I'm not terribly far off. I'm not terribly disagreeing with you, but I'd put Return of the Jedi above it. certainly. And I like it a lot more than Clone Wars. Speaking of Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor has confirmed that the Obi-Wan Plus series will begin filming in March, which has me incredibly excited. Confirmed, but we'll see what happens. It's been an exciting year where a lot of confirmed things didn't happen. Dayton, what are the movie series in the upcoming 31 on 31? All right, let me see if I can do this. It, The Thing, Gremlins, Critters, Aliens, Predator, Jeepers Creepers. There you go. Gamerman, do you think the Jurassic franchise wrote themselves into corner with the ending of Fallen Kingdom, and do you fear Jurassic World Dominion will be another Rise of Skywalker? Well, I mean, I don't like it. It can't possibly be a Rise of Skywalker because Jurassic Park is a franchise, is not Star Wars. And the story of Jurassic Park is not the Skywalker saga. That's the problem with Rise of Skywalker. Like, a movie being disappointed and disjointed. That is not the same thing as promising, having a story that's supposed to pay off over 40 years of movies and just totally dropping the ball, making it up, playing it super safe. They're just not the same thing. And the Jurassic Park movies are not as intertwined of a story as the Skywalker saga. So I don't think it can be another Rise of Skywalker because they're just not the same thing. Do I think they wrote themselves into a corner? I think they put them... I don't know that they wrote themselves into a corner so much as they just set themselves up for a story that's totally different. The stories thus far have been fairly contained. We're on an island, get off the island. Other than the end of Lost World, they're all kind of get off the island, get out of this mansion. That's what they've been about. And so then it's dinosaurs go out everywhere. That's totally different. So I don't know what that is. It's almost the opposite of writing themselves into a corner. They've removed all corners. So it's just kind of like, will this even feel like a Jurassic Park movie if just there's dinosaurs everywhere? To an extent, I think not that this is I just don't know that Jurassic Park isn't really set up to be an ongoing franchise because there's only so many stories you can tell before you're just telling the same story, which we've clearly, that's what's kind of, they go back to the island and have to escape again. And so then Jurassic World could be this nice refresher because it's like, what if the park actually happened? You get to the end of the movie, the park is destroyed, it didn't work, and now what do? Take the dinosaurs off the... And I think that's where they almost wrote themselves into a corner, but it's not really even writing themselves into the corner so much as the franchise just isn't designed to go on forever. But the movies make so much money that you have to keep going. David Patterson, if I were you, I would actually wait for 2022 to do the Scorsese video since that is when his next film comes out and people would be asking for you to re-rank them with Killers of the Flower Moon added. And maybe that is the logic that I'll use. Maybe that could be, and that would at least give me an answer to the question. Sometimes it's even tough because, depending on when the movie's scheduled to come out, say the movie's scheduled to come out, and I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know at all. Obviously, that wasn't part of my equation that I gave earlier. Let's say that movie's scheduled to come out a week after the Batman, the week after a Marvel movie, something like that, to where I know I will have a series of hit videos related to the Batman, related to Marvel, and I know there's a bunch of things I'll need to watch in preparation for those. And so then suddenly I'm going, okay, the Scorsese thing is a new thing I've never done before, but I don't know what it will do, and it takes a lot of my time. And it's one video. It's only one video. That's the part that makes it so risky to put that so much time into it. Where it's to say, if I put a bunch of time into watching Batman movies, I will get a bunch of hit Batman videos out of it. Safe bets out of watching all the Batman movies. I just can't do that with Scorsese. That's some of the equations that's going on inside my mind of what I can and can't do. And that's what makes it tricky to do what I do. Luke, the film fan, would you ever do a favorite horror franchise video? Um, yeah, I'll make a note of that right now. Um, uh, I might throw that onto my uh, 10 horror franchises. That is entirely possible. Something I could do this month. I'll phrase it that way. Um, Rich, how are things going in Texas right now? They're fine. I mean, I mean, things like everyone seems very normal to me. I stopped by my mom's work the other day, and people were normal. Went to my sister's house the other day. People were normal. Went to the movies the other day. People were normal. Hung out with my buddies last week. We actually went to downtown Austin. Things were normal. 2020 normal, but it's not like chaos in the streets or people in fear or anything. Gamer Man, I've recently gone back and watched Arrow Season 3 premiere review. Watched your Arrow Season 3 premiere review. You said you think it would be good, and then you get to the end of the season. You said you think it will be good, and then you get to the end of the season. I'm not entirely sure what you're saying or asking. I guess you're saying you watched my season 3 review and I was positive on the premiere, and then obviously by the end of it I'm not as crazy about it. Season 3 is the season where Felicity got broken. The dynamic that was fun with Oliver was the back and forth. And once they're together, they didn't really know what to do with it, and she became very naggy. And then they did some weird, the way the Ra's al Ghul stuff played out strained some credibility. Dayton, how do you feel about No Time to Die getting delayed again? Do you think it's necessary or not? We talked about this on my podcast extensively. What do I feel about it? I don't feel anything about it because that's just the reality of 2020. I've been assuming that movies aren't going to come out and big blockbusters aren't going to come out really. I was surprised it took them so long. It was stupid of them to start a marketing campaign and then a week later delay it. I mean, they literally put out a Billie Eilish music video the day before they delayed the movie, which is just stupid. And then the week after they delayed the movie, they had Daniel Craig doing the talk show circuit. It was just stupid. So I have those thoughts, but I mean, beyond that, it's just the reality of 2020. But I mean, I've talked about this extensively on my podcast. I believe I even went on to Griffin's channel. We did a whole video talking about it for like 20 minutes. Dayton, have you seen Cocktail with Tom Cruise? Yeah, I've seen Cocktail many times over the years. I think my parents rented it or something, when I was young. So I've Tom Cruise back in the day, a huge, obviously still a huge movie star, but they watched his movies all the time, so I saw it going way back in the day. David Patterson, 6 of my top 10 most anticipated films for 2021 were supposed to come out this year. I haven't really started making any sort of list like that. I haven't started thinking about it whatsoever, but I imagine mine will be similar. Nicholas, what do you think your favorite time travel movie is? Terminator 2? Terminator 2. I mean, you can just look at my top 20 favorite movies, and there's like 3 or 4 time travel movies in there. Those are my 3 or 4 favorite time travel movies. So, it's Back to the Future and Terminator 2 and The Terminator. I don't remember which other ones in it, but I love time travel movies, and Terminator 2 is a time travel movie, so there it is. But then more distinctly time travel would be Back to the Future, where that's a more direct plot point in it. Gamerman Will Hahn, who plays Thea on Arrow, says she didn't like Thea being a ninja superhouse. She agrees with you. Yeah, I mean, it's what I say on all those shows, that they feel the need to just promote everybody. Everybody gets superpowers and stuff like that. I don't think it does the shows any favors doing that, and it leads to problems. Like, for superheroes to be super, they have to be different from everyone else. And when you can just take a spoiled rich girl who was doing drugs the season before and turn her into a superhero after 3 months with daddy, if she can do that, anybody can do that. It's not a big deal anymore, and that's not good. Thomas Jones, if you want, you wanted to do, if you wanted do you think you'd be able to do any other Office videos, considering you've ranked the characters, episodes, cold opens, and seasons? I mean, I have a whole list of other Office videos planned, and just even the episodes of individual seasons. I have notes I've already started working on for those. So I mean, it's the same thing as with those other TV shows. The Office, I had a couple hit videos out of it, so then I kept trying to find more videos to kind of fuel the cycle, and it just didn't work. People are interested in seasons, characters, top episodes, but then all the other stuff I do, it just doesn't get traction, so it's just not a priority. But I have more notes written for things like that. David Patterson, I find it funny that one of the most famous actors working now is a 5'7" Scientologist that does his own stunts and is going to space. He's a weird, interesting guy, for sure. Which movies do you think defined the 80s? Define the 80s? I don't know. I wouldn't have an answer to that off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't off the top of my head be able to say that, because it's just too many ways to interpret the question. Matthew, have you seen Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas? It's said to be one of the worst movies ever made and has a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes and 1 Razzie for Worst Picture. No, I mean, I'm not terribly interested in a Kirk Cameron film. I'm sure it is a bad movie, but I would take some of that with a grain of salt. Of Kirk Cameron he's making a movie overtly with an agenda. It's right there on his shoulder. That agenda probably very much does not line up with most Rotten Tomatoes critics. Therefore, you have a bad movie with an agenda the critic disagrees with, so suddenly it's just prime material for them to go after. Gamerman, Arrow Season 3, when Mark Guggenheim got full control over Arrow is when it fell apart. If you were wondering, showrunner Greg Berlanti, Season 1 through 2. Gargahan, Wendy, Beth. Yeah, so leading up the showrunners. I wouldn't necessarily point I would maybe view it as that's part of the problem. I think there's just in general, the earlier these shows are with their starting premise. I mean, you could actually go back and watch my Season 1 review of Arrow. I mean, it's 3 years pre-Sean Chandler Talks About. And I believe I talked about in it how I was surprised that they were able to run through so many plot lines so quickly. And I talked about, I don't know how long they'll be able to keep this up. Because they're just burning through top-level stories of, Episode 3, they think that Oliver Queen is the Arrow and they're trying to track him down. And so they just burned through a lot of plot lines very quickly, and then they did that again in Season 2. You can only do that so long. And then likewise, if the production company is just focused all in on one superhero show versus having multiple superhero shows, I blame that a little bit more, because all their showrunner juggling didn't seem to help any, but it's not the first thing that I point the finger at. Thomas Jones, heading for another lockdown here in Wales. Only way to get through it is to watch more movies. Your channel has inspired me to watch more movies than I ever have before, so thank you for that. Sweet. There's a few positive things about this year. Not a lot, but there's a few positive things in there. It seems like more lockdowns could be coming in the near future. Landon, it was really cool to see your channel's evolution after I watched both of your Star Trek rankings. That's one way to very much see the evolution. In both of those videos, this is the same wall behind me. There's one right here. That's even one way you can see the evolution simply by how different the space looks at that I'm in. Both shot, one of the new one shot, right here. The other one was shot 6 feet that way. And the room is totally different. But then beyond that, obviously, I haven't watched that original one since I made it. But I doubt I used any B-roll and no production value. I doubt that I didn't rewatch all the movies before I did it. I didn't write a bunch of notes. It was all the stuff the opposite of how I would do a ranking now. And the same reason that I'll be like, I can't do a Martin Scorsese ranking. If all I had to do is watch the Scorsese movies I haven't watched before, It it wouldn't probably I don't know 8 movies. I don't know what it would be, but he's done 25. I've seen a good number of them, and using that old criteria of like, oh, I've seen it before, I'll just talk about it. I could do that, but it wouldn't be up to my current standards, and so I don't want that to be what I do. Landon Peterson, what is the main horror ranking franchise this month? I'm doing a 31 on 31. I mentioned it in here. Doing a 31 on 31. So it's The Thing, Gremlins, Critters, Jeepers Creepers, Predator, Aliens, all together in one, and then I'll update my Aliens one because it's over 3 years old, not up to my current standards. And then a couple of those other ones I'll make a standalone video for as well. David Patterson, while I don't think Tenet is the best time travel movie, it is probably the coolest. I mean, there's some cool visuals in it. I could agree with that. Gamerman, just to give you a little background, I started watching Arrow in 2017. I took my time, but I watched 2 through 4 in 1 week and watched season 5 and 6 while it was airing. Gotcha. David Patterson, should I watch The Room? It is a great example of a movie that's perfectly bad. If that'll just annoy you, then no. If that will amuse you, watching a perfectly bad movie, then yes, it is perfectly bad. It makes every choice it makes is wrong. So there's something that's a lot of fun about that. So, all right, looks like we made it to the end. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. And keep talking movies too much.